Good afternoon. Today I'm talking to Rob Shepherd. Hi, Rob. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Thank you. Yes, I'm Rob Shepherd. I'm an author of dark horror, dark fiction. I've got a number of books some people that may have heard of, probably not. Some of which are Semi-Animus and the prequel, which is a book of short stories, which is Deaders, just behind here. And I've got a number of novellas and novelettes out as well. And yeah, I've been doing writing for quite some time now, since must be about 15-20 years I've been doing it seriously, I should guess, and just enjoying it and seeing what works and what people like.
Did you always want to write?
I don't think I was aware that I wanted to write, to be honest. I didn't tend to think about it much, but when you think back, you realise how much you tend to write, not knowing what you were doing as such. You write little things down, and you write some sort of fantasy idea you've got, and it'd always be thrown away. But I never realised that I really wanted to do it until much later on. You hear a lot of authors saying, "Oh, I've always wanted to write ever since I was a little kid. I've always been inspired," and I was always into something different. I've always been into the weird things and doing things like that. So I was always more interested in that, and I was interested in my academics of doing, wanted to work in sciences and things like that. So I went that way. But life plays its games, and those things don't work out. And I ended up in a position where I was doing a regular job, but I had time, and it's one of those things where you have to go to, bad things happen, and you find that writing was something that came up inadvertently, really, and it was a way that I managed to cope through what I went through, and it's from there that really got started.
So when you started writing, what made you take the plunge and publish instead of just writing for, yourself?
It was encouragement of others. I was really just putting out little blog posts, bit of fun. Up until that point, I'd only been doing the usual boring social media stuff at the time, of sharing videos and just laughing about comments and talking to people. And then I'm old enough to have, I discovered MySpace, and I used to put little blog posts up. Started writing little diary. They'd started like little diary entries, and it was kind of like a little competition. I had a friend on MySpace that I used to talk to, and we was talking about classic horror characters like Frankenstein and things like that. And they dared me to come up with an idea using as many classic horror characters as I could. And so that's what started it. I started writing little diary entries, and a few people started to read them, and then start like them, and started just encouraging me more and more, and until it kind of come to a natural conclusion. But people wanted more from it, and one of them friends turned around and just said, "You should put this into a book, make this into a book." I thought they were joking, but they weren't. And so I ended up working on it and seeing if I could make into a book, and I ended up creating some sketches and some paintings to include into the book. And then eventually, I didn't know the first thing about publishing, let alone self-publishing. But so I just asked around, and I got told about Lulu.com, which is a print on demand service at the time. And so I went from there, and it started off, and I got made my first book, which was an A4 size, because I had no idea about formatting and any of that. So it was a A4 size pamphlet-like book with size 14 font and everything, and it's a simple red cover with a title on it in black, and I never really expected anything of it, but a few people started to take notice and encourage me more, until eventually I started doing more with it, and that's what kind of snowballed from there. That led me to my first publisher, which was a friend started up their own publishing company, and I was with them for quite a while, until I started with my current publisher, who are now in the process of re-releasing some work, and with new work in the process of coming not too distant future.
Awesome. Were you a big reader as a child and into adulthood?
I would say I was, but I wasn't a voracious reader. I didn't read everything I could get my hands on, but there were things that I would always look for. Commonly throughout my childhood was always looking at natural world books, wildlife books, and things like that. So I'd always have my head buried in a book about sharks and dinosaurs, and then that kind of led on to the stranger things, unsolved mysteries and paranormal, and I'll be reading those and about ghosts and everything spooky and cringing. I was into those. But I used to love reading Agatha Christie, which I got from my mum. And then I'd be, one of the things I was pretty addicted to at the time was the adventure books. I'd read those, and I'd wait for the bit, and then it would say, what do you want to do next? What should happen next? Can turn to this page for that. And I used to love those. I used to go through the book 4, 5, 10 times until I'd done every ending there was to do for the book. And then I'd take it back and I'd go and find another one, but I wasn't a voracious reader. I just liked certain things. I got absorbed into certain things. And it's, my son is autistic, so when he was a child, he's obsessive about certain things, and he obsessed about one particular thing, and I think and looking back, I was exactly the same. I would obsess over dinosaurs, and I'd obsess over sharks, and I'd obsess over these adventure books, and I'd obsess over reading Agatha Christie, and then I would obsess over Arthur C. Clarke and Roald Dahl, and but I wasn't voracious. I wouldn't, I wasn't all. I'd love being in the library, but I'd find myself there more or less because I didn't have a terrific number of friends. So the library was, a place to go, because, well, why not? There's nothing else. So I used to go there and just I'd spend all day there looking around until I'd have to sign a book out, and then I'd take it out, and then I'll be back within a couple of days to get something else. But yeah, I mean, even now I've got so many books that I should have read by now, but I haven't. But I hope to get more prolific in my reading again soon. So,
what made you choose to write in the genre that you write in?
I don't know if I chose to. It's more like I've found myself there because of my interests in everything spooky and horrifying. And it just, I kind of found myself being there in, naturally drawn to it. And I, with the exception of one of my books, pretty much everything of mine is got a dark undertone, and some certain amount of foreshadowing, and and they're all got some sort of twist to them. So it's just a natural place for me to be is in the darker fiction, bordering on the horror and fantasy.
And what's your biggest goal as a writer? What's the one thing that you'd love to achieve?
I just think having being happy with what I've completed, really. Being content with the work I've completed, and having, just knowing that I can look back and see books that I've done, varying different lengths and sizes and what have you, and just saying, I did that. And if, as I say to people all the time, if one person picks up a book, reads it and enjoys it, then as far as I'm concerned, I've done my job. I've done what I'm supposed to do, what I'll set out to, because I don't set out to write for people. I don't set out for looking at what people would enjoy to read. It's what I enjoy writing. So I've got 1,001, an infinite number of ideas that come to fruition and don't come to fruition, and but I'll just keep writing. And if something I enjoyed, a particular story, and I'll carry it out through to the end, and I'll go on to another one at some point. But there's, I don't go into it with a goal of that someone section of an audience will enjoy a book. Goes to write what I enjoy.
And would you like to write full time one day?
It would be nice. I think sometimes I write better under time constraint and pressure, but I certainly wouldn't want to have the pressure of deadline and those multi-book deals that authors used to get, and you've got to get them done by a certain deadline. And I wouldn't thrive under that, but I thrive under a certain amount of pressure. A lot of it is either self-imposed or a perceived expectation on my part. If someone's asked me for a story, to supply a story for them for their anthology or whatever, it's the pressure to deliver there and to deliver it on their deadline time. I put self-imposed pressure on myself to do it for them, and that's the pressure that I tend to find myself working best at when I've feel loyally bound to get some work done. That's it's a pressure. It's that goal you find yourself needing to finish. It's like, I've got to do this because someone expects it of me, and most of the time they don't expect it from you. It's not a problem, because for the most people, I've said to lots of people before, when I've provisionally accepted, saying, I'll write the story for the anthology. Sometimes I'm not going to be able to deliver, so don't worry. don't put me down on it. I'm not going to get it done in time. A lot of the time it's because I have ideas that I think are going to be great, which would be great for their anthology, but I end up taking too long with it and taking the story too far, so that it's not a short story anymore. It's becoming more of a novelette or a novella. So it's like, this is not anywhere near done, and I've not got the time to start another one and get it completed. So I just drop that. But yeah, it's more the self-imposed pressure that I feel, and the perception I have that people have an expectation of me delivering on a certain time, and that's where I thrive.
Do you have any no-go areas that you'll never write about?
I think I used to. Now, not so much. I think it's more of a case of recognizing where your core audience, how far they're prepared to go with you, how far they're prepared to follow you. You've got to be aware that you can only take your audience so far down a particular route in your work. For some people, some writers, their audiences will only go so far into, for example, to the fantasy element of horror. They'll only go so far before it's too fantastical for them, and others say it's only so far you can take them into extreme horror before they say, no, I'm not doing that. So I don't, there's not so much a no-go area for me. I'll try things out and see what happens. If something I'm not sure that my particular readership, I'm not sure they would be into so much, then, but I want the story to have a life, then I'll supply it somewhere. I'll give it, it might go into someone else's anthology or something, so it's got a life somewhere. But yeah, it's going to be interesting in the future, because there are books coming out, stories that will see life, that do go to some very some places that I'm not. It'll be interesting to see how far my audience are prepared to accept. There's some not so nice themes going on, or scenes in books, so we'll see how far people are prepared to go with it. But you hear it a lot. In horror, you hear a lot where a lot of the audiences, it's only so far they go, and you find it used to be that a horror audience would be, they're happy to go, no matter how extreme the horror is and how much gore there is in it, they'll go with you so long as there's no, there's no, there's no harm done to animals and children. And that was a big taboo for a long time. It's not, I don't think it's quite so much now. I think people have been preconditioned a little bit to it. But I think for me, it's going to be more the element of which you put it, you include that situation in. So if a child does get hurt or an animal does get hurt, it's the situation and the overall story. So when you add that scene into that story, and it I think is a shock to the system. So to say, it'll be interesting with some of mine that have got themes like that coming up, whether they'll keep sticking with me, or I'll get abuse enough to go, no, go back to where you were before, be like that kind of thing. Yeah, but I've had been scratching the itch of extreme horror for a little while, so I've been gradually going back to older style of classical kind of horror that I used to first got into when I first started writing seriously, which is mostly the core, area of which I'll normally write in. Everything tends to stem from that. I have a lot of I say a lot of foreshadowing in my work, and a lot of atmosphere and emotional and in mind. So and the psychological is a big aspect of mine, and that's where I tend to sit. There doesn't tend to be a huge amount of gore. A lot of it's implied. A lot of it is the looking over your shoulder. You're not quite sure, that uneasy feeling. That's tend to where I've historically been, but I wanted to stretch myself and see how far I can go before I'm like, I'm done with this. I don't like writing this, and I've pretty much got there. Now I've done a few long stories that I'll scratch those itch now. I've done the all-out accounts and things like that, so I get my old style and just incorporate that into works that are coming out.
What's the most interesting thing you found when doing research for your books?
Research, I don't tend to research like a lot of authors do. You find a lot of people go, no, my Google, if the police looked at my Google search, I'd be arrested and things like that. I don't have a lot of things like that on my Google search. I've got questionable things on my Google. Don't make a mistake about that. But I don't tend to sort of have an idea and go, oh, I need to research this and how this goes. It's just things that pop up in my head, and I think I want to include that into a story. So this, I think for me, it's more subtle research that's not an intense research. It's just looking at different things that come up, and a lot of my work is inspired by different things around me, and just let my brain do its thing when I'm asleep, and then it replays parts of it back to me when I'm writing, or it'll just, some part of it will come out as I'm writing, and that will come out into the story. But yeah, in some things I've done on the last book with Deaders, I did a little bit of research into chemicals, chemical warfare, just to plot ideas to continue to sort of put some explanations down and to sow the seeds for the final book in the trilogy. So then, and I get ideas and I say, oh, it's gonna go in this direction, it's definitely going, and it never works out like that, because it changes. For me, it changes all the time. And so ideas where I might say, well, this is what caused this, and this is who's doing it, and that changes. And so now it will be, this is who's created, this is what these people have created, but it isn't necessarily the reason for all of this. This is part of the reason. Yeah. So, but that was been interesting, looking up those type of things, the chemicals that actually been used by Western governments in peacetime, with the view of possible conflict and the view of enhancing our own soldiers and things like that. It's an eye-opener. So it was quite interesting, because there were things in there that, in actual legal documents reference things, a zombie virus, and how to create a chemical, effectively a chemical zombie virus that's controllable and things like that. And these are things that were actually researched and worked upon by military and government bodies. So that was a bit of an eye-opener and interesting to read. And even more interesting was trying to figure out how to pronounce the actual chemical names.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yes, having studied or currently studying some chemistry, I don't know why they have to make it so complicated.
Yes, one of the chemical compounds that I include a scan of the page. I don't include the. People find a lot of it, is blurry, and it's that for a reason, because it's obviously an author's field of work and research, and they don't want that splashed in someone else's book and credit and whatever. And then obviously there's certain sections in there that obviously some people wouldn't want to be, would rather not be known about. So you just kind of let it go blurry. But I'm able to have some of the chemical compound names, and one of them is absolutely impossible to pronounce, and but reading its side effects was one thing, and then the intended benefits and then its use was that was kind of a surprise. But yeah, that was fun.
It sounds like it. Yeah, I'm intrigued as well. Who are your author heroes? Who do you look up to?
I wouldn't say a hero or that I look up to this person off the bat, but purely literary wise, then Lovecraft is a big influence, and it's more of an unspoken influence, with the absurdity and the weirdness of something occurring from nothing. But in terms of admiring and aspiring to and things like that, then Edgar Allan Poe is a big one. Charles Dickens. Who else have we got? Classic authors, obviously, we all get to some extent are influenced by people like Bram Stoker and Mary Shelley. Modern authors, obviously, I would be amiss if I didn't say that Stephen King would have an influence. You can't not be influenced at our age by Stephen King. But in terms of absolute heroes in literature, Clive Barker is probably the biggest influence and hero, because he won't forge his own path, and in horror he's wrote stories like nobody else had ever written and ever seen before, and just was like, I'm going to write this, and to hell with anyone who doesn't like it, this is what I'm going to do. And that itself is something that influenced me to say, well, this is what I write, and you either like it or you don't. It's it's also in terms of his as a person, he's influenced me with his being his struggles with health issues and coming through those, but also being openly gay in what was during those times a very heterosexual environment. That's how it was perceived to be, but being very open about it and being very open with people, and inclusive, just doesn't care who you are, what your background is, or anything like that. And that's something that spoke to me a lot. Is something that I never thought about, but was something that I'd always seemed to do myself. So it kind of that drew me to him in itself, along with his absolute, mastery of the craft. It was seeing that it's almost kindred spirit in someone else that you admire. Yes, you say, "Oh, I'd do that." Seeing the same mindset and not realizing that you had that mindset until someone voices it back to you, and you're like, "Oh," and it's like so. You see admiration for that. So.
Have you made lots of author friends since you started writing?
I've been very lucky to have made a lot of friends, and a lot of author friends. I've been very lucky to get to know, to larger or lesser degree, some more well-known, some some well-established authors, and some more well-known or famous authors. I don't like to say famous. It's not the point of being an author. Fame isn't the point of it, but you can't escape the celebrity of things. Everybody has to, celebrity seems to worm its way into everything. But I've been very lucky to get to know some very talented people that have forged a career in writing. That, as I say, I know to larger or lesser degrees, but all have been very supportive and encouraging, and very lovely people. So I feel very, very lucky and privileged.
And do you get much feedback from your readers?
I tend to more on social media now. It's a lot of, I've got more of a core readership rather than a wide readership. I've got author friends that have got, I would say, a very wide, quite a healthy readership, whereas mine's a nice little cult group of people. But they still give me plenty of feedback when they see something, and most of it's been pretty positive. So again, I feel very blessed and to some degree lucky that those people have liked my work. Pretty much no matter what at the moment I seem to throw at them, they've seemed to enjoy it. But yeah, never shy to give feedback. I don't tend to get the emails from people who've read my book unless they previously know me on social media or whatever. So I don't get erroneous messages coming through saying I've read your book, blah blah blah, this and give me feedback. But otherwise, I get quite good feedback from my hardcore readers.
Well, would you consider writing in any other genres?
I never rule anything out. It'd be stupid for me to say never. I say certain genres are very, if not hugely unlikely, but not impossible. It's just some genres would be either of very little interest for me, or even though I enjoy them, enjoy reading them, just not within my particular skill set as an author. As much as I respect authors that write in the genre, I wouldn't be one that would be going into erotic romance, for example. I have very little interest in it, and there'd be no point me really going into there. because if you've got very little interest in it, it's going to show in your writing. So there's no point trying to put something out that's there's you've not really put any heart into. On the other hand, I absolutely love science fiction, but I certainly wouldn't go into a full science going into writing a full science fiction book or anything, because that's not my skill set. I find that's a very particular skill set that I don't possess. The smaller details of certain things, I get bored going into detail on certain things. I give as much detail as I feel readers need for you to understand what's going on and to get the sense of the environment and the atmosphere. And I say I don't go into graphic detail of this very small detail, because while it's boring for me, and I think it would be, you can get lost in it and just bore your reader to death.
If you were stranded on a desert island, what 3 things would you want with you?
What 3 things? Oh dear. I would probably want as much liquor or spirits as possible that can, and I don't mind which way how that occurs, whether it be being washed up or whatever. If it's quashable, then that's fine with me. Something to record some thoughts onto, however that manifests itself. There's myriad ways of creating it. Obviously, I'm not going to write my ideas down on the sand. Not necessarily a camera to take photos of what I've just written, but yeah, you can use all sorts of things as a pen and paper. So, suppose some music. Be nice to have a certain amount of music washed up. So music is always good for some ideas, whether you've got the or learn the lyrics of the songs while listen to them over and over again. They're always good for ideas. And after that, well, I don't know what else I could possibly want. That would be the main things. I think I can't think much else, apart from probably if I was on my own, it would be fine. If it was an island that was populated by more than a few other people, then probably something to make a loincloth would be advisable. I'm not too worried myself, but I think it'd be more of a shock to others than the embarrassment factor to me. I think they would be more embarrassed and wanted to shoot them up their eyes than I would.
What do you enjoy doing when you're not writing and you're not at work?
I tend to just bum around and do whatever I feel like doing. I take the dog for a walk, and when I get a chance, have a fast play with the animals. A lot of time is spent playing with the animals and feeding them. It's not just the dog. We've got we've also got our cat. We've got 2 snakes, a lizard and a frog that keep us busy. So I get kept busy seeing to those. And just watching, I go on YouTube a lot, watching, finding classic films to watch. I watch a lot of reviewers, booktube channels. I'm always interested in reading them, not for the fact that I'm thinking that someone would be reviewing something of mine, but it's good to see what people are enjoying. I like seeing what books people have picked up and are looking forward to reading themselves or have enjoyed reading. And sometimes it can spark some ideas that I might want to explore later on. So they're top of things I like to just chill out with.
And are you working on anything at the moment, and what's coming next for you?
I've got a lot on my plate at the moment. There's a lot of things in the works, a lot of things that are part written, half written, things that are books that are, I've got a book that I'm reworking, which I'm hoping at some point to get to finish this year. I'm not hopeful because every time I set some sort of time, so it would be nice if I get round to doing that. I've got a sequel, third book to Semi-Animus. Debtors is the prequel. That was the first book I wrote. Debtors is the prequel, and there's be a third book coming. It's a third of the way in, with lots of things to cover, and so that will be probably the biggest book of the 3. It looks like it's going to be a bit of a chunker, especially for me. I thought this one was a chunk, and that's about 230 pages. And that's the largest book I'd put out to date. And this one, I think, is going to succeed that. So that will be coming in the future. I've got a re-release coming. That's in the process of being edited and reworked from a publisher. That will be out this year. Hopefully the next couple of months, or see how it goes. Hopefully be next few months. So there's lots coming, and so re-releases. As I've got another novella/novelette that will be coming after the re-release. The re-release is, I don't know if I've got book here. Yes, I have. If I can do it without breaking everything. That's the original book, Friends Like Us. I'd taken it down because it's being re-released by my publisher Moment. But because I've got old copies, obviously a few people were after the copies. I gave a couple of copies of this out with the understanding that it to be treated more like an ARC version, because there are issues around the formatting and the text in there, some issues with the spelling that hadn't been corrected. So there were some issues around Amazon's printing of it. But someone reviewed it on their channel on YouTube, and emailed me to ask me if they could put it up, and what's happening with it, because they'd looked into it and saw that the only copies that were now available were at ridiculous price. And I explained to them that I'd taken it down. That's why. And Amazon had this thing where any copies that they've already pre-printed in anticipation of some sellers sold, they allow so many of them, that limited stock, to be bought up, and then you get a third party buying those up. And when they know that it's limited stock, when they see the moment there's no more available, they hike the price up. And that was the reason. So one of these were up for $900. So to stop people being disappointed by seeing the review and being interested in it and not being able to get the book, I spoke to my publisher, and they kindly agreed that I can put it back up for a limited time whilst it's being reworked and reissued. Once the new version edition is ready, then I'll take this back down, and the new edition will go up. So that's the next one that's coming out. As I say, I've got a book coming out. It'll be be released after that at some point. Hopefully not too long afterwards, but I want to space them out, so I don't want to flood the place with a sudden dirge of material, because it starts to feel a little less. I want each time I release a book, I want it to feel like a little bit of an occasion for people that have invested their time into me and into my work. So I want to make it feel a little bit special and a bit of an occasion for them. So I'm trying to space it out and hopefully get some, drive some interest and excitement in that time. But there's plenty of work to come in, Tom. There might be some gaps in between, but I won't have stopped working. Just won't be as fast as some people write. That some friends of mine that are very accomplished authors and absolutely prolific, and how they put out the work they do, I have no idea. And that every piece they put out, every short story, every novella, every book is of such incredible quality. It just astounds me that they get out so many, whilst having that, each one being of such high quality. So I wish I could be like that, but I'm a mood writer. I write. If I'm not in the mood, I won't write. I won't bother. I won't force myself to write something, because I know, you get some people saying, even if you write for, a couple of 100 words, you've got some writing done for the day to make you feel better. Yeah, it does. For me, it will do for about half an hour, and then I feel like crap. Because if I force myself, that's 200 words that are just going to be deleted again, because they won't be worth my time. So I just, when I'm ready, when my mind's ready, I get there and I open up one of the files from my books, and I'll start cracking, and it'll flow. When I'm ready, it flows, and that's when I know the quality will be there. It just needs polishing, and that's where I rely on certain close friends that are in the industry, and obviously my publisher does a fantastic job of editing as well. Bless their soul, they have a lot of editing to do when they get to me, because I'm so precious with my work that I say to them, you're going to scream at me again, but you're gonna have to cull this, because I can't do it, because I'm too pansy.
Well, I don't think I have any more questions for you, unless you think there's anything I haven't asked you that you want to tell us.
there could be lots of things I could divulge, but I don't think there are things people would really want to know about me. But to say thank you for asking and invite me to do this interview, and it's an honour and a real pleasure.
Likewise, and thank you to Claire Birkin from Tales on Tuesdays for recommending you as well. I'll give her a little shout.
I always the fantastic there, and highly recommend people checking out Claire Birkin and the Bibliophile book page, books and things, and check out the Tales on Tuesdays page, especially if you've in this climate where you've been struggling with mental health. Go check it out. It's such a great thing that they're doing, and I've been very fortunate and privileged to have been able to take part in some of their talks on there, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And hopefully, if anything I've said or imparted during that has helped someone feel a bit better, then that's more than I could have hoped for. And so again, I hope everyone checks out. If you do suffer mental health, check it out, check them out. They're there for you, and they know exactly where to send you if you need more serious, you need more someone counseling and things like that. They know exactly the best places to go to. So yeah, I can't speak more highly of them.
Yeah, I second all of that. They're amazing. I love it. So just before we go, do you want to tell everyone where they can find out more about you and where they can find your books?
People can find all my books on Amazon, whether you're in the UK or in the States, Canada, you'll find me on there. You can also find me on social media. You can find me on Facebook. You can find, I've got an author page, so you just search for official Rob Shepherd, you'll find me. Again, same on Twitter, Instagram, I'm on there, same handled, official Rob Shepherd or Rob Shepherd Official. It's whatever they allow me to use on those. They can also visit the my publisher's website at terratrack.com, where you can find myself and all the authors at TerraTrack Publishing, and you can find the books there and learn more about books there as well.
Awesome. Well, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.